everybody. This is another episode of the California Society of Anesthesiologists Vital Times podcast series. And today it's going to be pretty special. This one is going to be called Rita and Ludwig's Origin Stories. And it's going to be the two CSA podcast hosts, Dr. Rita Agarwal and I, Ludwig Lin, talking about how we got into this. So, it'll be casual and we'll let you into, our like little CVs and go from there. So, Rita, so nice that we're both on the same podcast.
I love it. I love it. We've never done one like this together, so this will be fun, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we will each take just a couple minutes and just sort of briefly outline um, like what we do, and then we'll just start talking. So my name is Ludwig Lin, and I'm boarded in anesthesiology and critical care medicine, and I'm currently at University of California, San Francisco. I am actually wearing my UCSF t-shirt,
Woohoo!
and I also have spent time at Stanford Medical School as a critical care medicine, regional anesthesia, and anesthesia attending. I'm very, very fond of Stanford because that's where I went to undergraduate. And then I went to UCSF for medical school, did my anesthesia and critical care medicine fellowship training there. Spent a lot of my time working as an ICU and anesthesia attending at UCSF, then Stanford, and I've also been in private practice. So I sort of done done everything. I sort of have realized recently that I just like trying different things, including doing these podcasts, and I love it. So Rita, I'm gonna volley it back to you.
Okay. So I'm a little more, I think, diverse in my background, both probably my life background, in that I was born in Iran, lived in Lebanon, England, and then moved to Houston. So I did my undergrad at Texas A&M in College Station. I went to Baylor for medical school. I went to medical school knowing 100% I was going to be a neurologist. Well, we can see how that worked out. As in, it didn't. So, after my neurology rotation, realizing that while I loved the science and I loved the medicine, I hated the fact that at that time, especially, we couldn't do anything to really help patients. We could make a great diagnosis. Hey, you've got MS, you've got myasthenia gravis, you've got ALS, but we couldn't actually help them. So I went through a phase of really not knowing what I wanted to do. Baylor was a very surgically heavily dominated school, and I knew I liked being in the OR. So I kind of thought, okay, what the heck? I'll do surgery. Um, and I had like one elective left at the end of my medical school career and wasn't sure what to do. And a lot of people advised me to do anesthesia. They said, it'll be a great month. It's easy. You get to be in the OR. You get to do procedures. You get to hang out with us. What could be better? And so I did it. I loved it. At that point, I had already matched into surgery. So I'm like, okay, well, I love this, but I'm gonna do surgery. And this was in the days of every other night call. And I remember being sort of early in it was like several months in, and I was actually still having fun with my colleagues, with my fellow interns. But I was looking around and I saw all of these surgeons who were still there really late and really hustling to get cases. And I kept thinking about how much I liked and loved being in anesthesia. And I kept thinking, I don't know that I really want to keep doing surgery. And so ultimately, as I thought about it more, and I was dating and then married a surgeon, I'm like, yeah, no, one of us needs to have a better lifestyle. And I don't have that passion for surgery. And I really like what they're doing on the other end of the drapes. And I kind of think I want to do that. So I was lucky enough that there was a position available in my program, and I was able to transfer into anesthesia, sorry. And then peds was the same. I had no clue I was going to do pediatric anesthesia, but I started my rotation, fell in love with taking care of the kids, taking care of the parents, the interactions with everyone that we worked with, just the very different attitudes that surgeons, nurses, everybody who worked in that children's hospital had. And so that's how I ended up in peds. From there, I actually did my fellowship in Denver, on the Children's Hospital in Denver, as it was then known. It's now Children's Colorado. And then worked at Texas Children's for a year and a half. I had to convince my husband to move back to Colorado with me. We were there for about 20 years, and then we moved to Stanford. So that is my very roundabout life
I
story
love
as to how I
it.
got here.
I had no idea you started out as a surgery resident. Wow.
Yeah.
That
It
that
was
is
intense.
ballsy.
It
Yes,
was intense.
I bet it was intense. Well, I actually had no plans of becoming an anesthesiologist either. So I think this is good for people to know that people arrive at their uh, specialties by various like ephemeral ways. I
Yeah.
started out, well, first of all, I applied to MD PhD for medical school because I had done a lot of cell biology research in undergrad, and I was convinced that I was going to work on that. And then I'm just going to be honest, and I chickened out. I decided that I didn't want to necessarily invest, at a minimum 8 years of my life doing an MD PhD because that meant that I was for sure going to go into research. I was not going to, you know, quote unquote waste that time of doing the MD PhD. So I went up going to medical school, not MSTP, and I was at UC San Francisco. And I still plan on doing HEMONC and doing research and having an academic
Oh,
career
okay.
that way. And I did my third year medicine rotation at San Francisco General, and I loved every minute of it. Just thought the residents were brilliant. That was at the time when AIDS was still very much the scourge,
Sure.
and UCSF and San Francisco General were at the forefront and still are at the forefront of HIV care. But back then, there was an entire unit devoted to that at San Francisco General, with a lot of young men, basically my age, who were dying and who had, like 8 chest tubes and God knows what else. And I just thought, my God, this is where I need to be. This is the kind of work I want to do. I could only be so lucky to be as smart as these residents and these attendings I worked with. So I thought this is perfect, perfect. And I did my fourth year rotation in medicine early. And to my horror, I did not like a single second of it.
Oh, no.
I know it was a lot of chronic medical problems,
Yeah.
like the opposite end of the spectrum. And I think I realized that my heart wasn't in that. And halfway through my sub I realized that I couldn't go into internal medicine. And I was heartbroken. I was also anchorless. And I don't
Yes.
like not having plans. So I
Right.
thought,
I
oh
felt
my
the same way.
gosh.
That was a long period of, "Oh my god, what am I gonna do?" I wanted to be a neurologist my whole life.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, well, what do I do? What do I do? And right after that I did the required 2-week rotation in anesthesiology that University of California, San Francisco has. And the anesthesia department has fought very hard to keep that in the curriculum. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for that because had I not been exposed to it, I would not have considered it as an option because the only anesthesiologist I knew when I was a kid and a young adult was my mom's best friend's husband. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be that. Because, you think your parents' friends are
Right,
just the
right.
biggest dweebs. So there's no way I was going to replicate that. He's actually a very, very famous and successful academic anesthesiologist. And I will not say his name. but um, so, I was not going to go down that route. But then I started hanging out in the OR with these anesthesia people, and I realized that they were, first of all, in love with their jobs.
Yeah,
Second, they really liked what I liked. They liked cardiopulmonary physiology, and they were good at explaining it. They got excited about explaining it. I
right.
thought, who are these people who actually want to talk to me, like a lowly medical student? So then I realized, wow, this is a good specialty. It's like it's got a lot of procedures. It's got sort of like the intensity of the operating room, but at the same time, you're using your brains constantly. And for me, this was solidified when I did my sub-I in critical care, because there I realized that I could use a lot of these skills and still be a sort of wannabe internal medicine person. So that kind of sealed the deal for me. It's great that we both wound up in anesthesia, right?
I wonder because so many medical schools do not have anesthesia rotations, or they don't have required rotations as part of their curriculum. I actually did have a required rotation. It was 1 week, and it
Oh,
happened to be over, I think it was like the 4th of July, so it was already 1 day short. And then the poor attending that I was assigned to work with, his wife just got admitted to the hospital, the day before, I think, or over that weekend or something. And he was still trying really hard because they were short staffed to help cover the ORs. Luckily it was at the same hospital, but and teach me and then also take care of his wife who was pretty critically ill. So that
wow.
experience was really like I didn't know anything, didn't really learn anything. It really
Hmm.
wasn't until that 1 month elective. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful. I don't remember who it was. It seemed like it was a lot of like my surgery, like the surgery residents and interns that I had been talking to, and others who said, "Oh, you should do this rotation."
Hmm.
I mean, for me, the epiphany where I really decided to make the switch because my husband was a surgeon, right? I was actually um, really worried that he would be upset if I switched out of surgery,
Oh.
that it would be hard for him. But there was a night, and this is a little bit of a story, um, but one of our I was at the county hospital, which is very much like the general, and I was on there was three surgical teams, three surgical services, and I was on the team that was not my husband's team, and it was one of the chief residents, and he had picked up the fourth year surgery resident, and they had gotten into a horrific car accident. They didn't live very far, but he was, I think, speeding a little because it was early morning, wasn't expecting any traffic, was speeding, and then I don't know if he ran a stoplight or if the other car ran a stoplight. He got T-boned.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I ended up in the OR trying to help with his resuscitation, and he passed away. I
Oh
was
gosh.
devastated. Everybody left the room and told me to close him up. Here I am, an intern who's been in practice for, several months, and I'm sobbing uncontrollably. This was a great guy. We all knew him well, and I'm trying to close him up. One of the anesthesiologists to this day, I mean, he's the reason I switched, I think. His name was Lou Covalier, and I feel like, we have to mention our heroes. He came in, he took one look at me, sobbing, and my mask was soaking wet. I was crying so hard. And I was trying to close all these incisions, and they had tried to prep him for ECMO. They had, they'd done, he was split from stem to stern, basically. And he went out, he grabbed some random surgery brought him in and said, "Help her. She can't do this by herself." And it's like, all the surgeons are gone. They're all gone. They just left me there. And so I finally closed up. My chief resident on my service was he was kind of, until he realized what happened, he was kind of irritated with me for having left during rounds because they kept calling this code overhead. And then when I told him, like, he had no idea. But there was no caring, there was no sympathy, there was nothing. It's like, okay, we just keep going. And so I was on call that night, and I had a significant complication occur. I mean, it turned out fine. I basically was changing a triple lumen catheter central line to a single lumen, was the only intern, there, and one of the nurses kept insistently trying to talk to me. I let go of the
Mm.
wire. It was like 11:30 in the middle of the night. I was exhausted. I had been pretty much crying off and on most of the day at that point. And um everybody was so upset. Everybody was so angry at me. They were just there was no understanding, no empathy. And then the next day, because it was, 20, well, it was every other night call, but you stayed the next day. There was none of this getting out. So I'm in the OR doing some big liver procedure where I'm holding that right whatever side, the right upper lobe retractor, that big retractor that's up there that you have to kind of hold up. So I can see nothing. I can see nothing. I don't know what's going on. Been up all night. I'm exhausted. I've been, crying all night. And twice the anesthesia resident had to stop me from falling asleep into the wound and falling in. And
Oh my
again, the
gosh.
same attending from the day before came in, and he basically went to the surgeon who was the chief of surgery and one of the most famous trauma surgeons, one a very well-known trauma surgeon, and said, "You've got to get her out of here." And then he took me, the anesthesia attending took me into his office, or it was kind of the general, it was his office, but everybody hung out there. He got
Hmm.
me coffee, he got me snacks. He's like, "Are you okay? I know what you've gone through." I mean, just was amazing. And this guy was a big gruff guy. He wasn't like known for being soft and cuddly. He was not known for that at all. And I think that was the day I'm just like, this group who basically is so, is kind of just mean because they're surgeons. And I'm okay with that. But when something this happens, there should have been some sort of acknowledgement, some sort of support. Nothing. And then this guy who's, here in this department, which I think I might be interested in doing, and the difference was just like night and day.
Yes.
So that was for me. Anyway, that was for me kind of my epiphany of when I made the decision, and I'm like, I gotta tell my husband. I mean, whatever happens, it doesn't matter. I don't really think I want to continue in this, because if it's this bad for something like this, I mean, what happens in my first year as an intern? How's it gonna be, year two, year three, year four, year five, attending ship? I don't want this. So, and
Yeah.
I felt the same way. Once I made that decision, I was so happy that I switched. Yeah.
That's an intense story. But in a way, it's almost like it was meant to be. I mean, you couldn't have had this be put to you in starker terms, right?
Right. Right.
And in retrospect, nowadays we talk so much about, well, things like empathy, but
Yeah.
also about how being burnt out really prevents one from having empathy. So I can almost see why the surgery team members that you were interacting with, behave that way, because they probably were so exhausted themselves. They
They were, and I
couldn't
don't
do
think
it.
any of them knew how to feel and how to respond. And so
Yeah.
that's what happened for me. So,
Wow. Yeah. That's intense. But so, so tell me more, like, do, like, what keeps you in anesthesia now?
well, the kids. I mean,
Oh.
I love, love, love. I've thought about this because as I've gotten older, and I'm now, in that age range where retirement is a real possibility in the next several years, I keep thinking about it, and it's like, but I don't wanna. I don't want to retire. I love what I do. I every day. I mean, yes, we have some really hard days, and I'm not gonna lie about that. And there's occasional days where I'll go home and feel like, oh, maybe it's time to quit. But I would say the very vast majority of days, I love the people, I love the patients, I love the interactions with the parents. I really like our surgeons for the most part. I like the nurses. I like the scrub techs, the people who clean the floors, the anesthesia techs, because people who work, particularly in children's hospitals, and I haven't worked in an adult hospital in 30 years. So I don't know how to compare it to that, but people who work in a children's hospital bring a different attitude, I think, with them every day. And it really is all about the kids and doing the best that
Mm.
you can for kids. And what could possibly be more satisfying than that? So
Yes, it's true. Well, I don't love dealing with kids. I remember,
you don't do kids on a daily
well,
basis, and that's
I,
okay. You do
I
ICU.
right. I do have to do some PD anesthesia every now and then, and I am always on like extra alert. It's true. Like, give me an adult with ARDS or multi-system failure, with various vasopressor drips going, and I'm okay. I'm totally
Yeah,
there. Heart rate 50 on my part. And
yeah,
then you give me some little, baby, and I have to draw up those little syringes and like
right, right. The
memorize my intramuscular sucks dose. And I am just
super Kayla,
white.
it's fine.
Out. So, you know, thankfully we all have our strengths and,
Yes,
and weaknesses. But I will say that I think probably the special thing about being in medicine, but also for the two of us being anesthesia, is that you see on a daily basis how much value you bring to that scenario and how much you can contribute. And I just think that is such a incredible space to be in. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you and I have the skills to, well, number one, keep somebody alive, but number two, to help ameliorate their pain, if not completely, absolve it, and to help them, their parents, their families, whoever sort of managed this whole process. So I just think it's such a powerful position, and it's extremely special to be able to do that, right? And
right.
I also have realized over time, because I'm, quite far along my career, that it's a hard job. Like not everybody actually makes it through all of this,
Right, right, and people
right?
retire early, and people want to retire early, and I'm think to myself, can't imagine anything more satisfying. I mean, there are definitely days when I'm just tired and I don't wanna get out of bed, and I don't wanna go to work, but most days it's like, "What could I do on a daily basis that would be as much fun as this?" So
Very
what
cool.
keeps you in medicine? Because you obviously from the ped standpoint, I think it's so much, you have kids, you can play with toys and you can talk about superheroes and you can live all your inner children bits. You can watch a movie and like, oh yeah, it's Paw Patrol that's playing right now. Or what did you think about the new Minecraft movie? You can't really do that, right, with adults?
Well, that's true. Yeah, I think my I don't know how to put this. Like the way I achieve fulfillment is different from yours. But I think for me, being a clinician is such a powerful role to be.
Right,
And I took a year off clinical work and worked in biotech. And I feel like that is, I mean, just as important. You're doing something else to try to help people's lives and help improve. At the same time, I realized that what really made me at the end of a day feel feel really good is the knowledge that that day I helped somebody,
right.
or in the case of a OR list, several somebodies get through one of the worst days in their lives. There's no other job that really brought that feeling for me.
Right, right.
Does that make sense at all?
Oh, no, that's exactly. I think that's very much true because so many people find surgery obviously incredibly anxiety provoking, but at least in the peds world, and I assume it's the same in the adult world, they find the anesthesia part of that even more anxiety provoking because that
Yes.
sense of giving up control for whatever period of time and having unawareness is really scary to a lot of people. So being able to reassure them, make them feel better, I think is fantastic. Well, I have
Yes.
a question for you, Ludwig. What brought you to you know what brought me to podcasting, and that was you. You're the
Much
one
to
who
our benefit.
convinced me to do that. So what brought you to podcasting?
Sure. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Well, so quite a few years back now, I returned from Stanford to UCSF to be the chief of critical care medicine at San Francisco General. And I think I went through this brief period when I was trying to construct a academic portfolio for myself. And it just so happened that the Society of Critical Care Medicine was looking for a additional podcast editor for their crew. And I thought, oh, that sounds kind of
Yeah,
interesting. And,
yeah.
in the ICU, all we do is talk about
Talk.
interesting things
All
for
right.
hours, for hours. So I thought, oh, I could do that. And the other part of this was I remembered that way back when I was a undergraduate at Stanford, I actually worked for our college radio station. We had our own AM radio station, and I was a newsreader for them. And all of my friends wanted to be the cool DJs. I just wanted to like read the news,
Read the news.
and I had a great time. My boss, this very no nonsense driven woman who I was scared of, actually turned out now to be
Who you were scared of.
yes, but she is now a super famous news anchor.
Oh,
She turned out to be Juju. Well, she was back then, but she still is Juju Chang, who is now a
oh,
ABC news anchor.
yeah,
So I was like, wow, I was raised amongst greatness.
yeah.
And in high school, I was actually a speech team member because I was trying to get into Stanford, needed something. So I sort of felt like I was coming back full circle by doing this
Oh, that's
podcast.
great.
So
Yeah.
then I started doing the Society of Critical Care Medicine's podcasts, and was really happy doing that. I think learned during that experience how to manage a conversation, think on my feet, and it was really rewarding. And then the opportunity came up to found this California Society of Anesthesiologists Vital Times podcast series, and that's been great. I mean, I think between you and me, we've had a chance to really tackle various important topics in all kinds of areas, and that's been really good. So that's my origin story in terms of all of this. How have you enjoyed your experience doing the podcasts?
It's been great. I did definitely feel like there was quite a steep learning curve managing the conversation. Like you said, I'm someone who loves to talk. And so I thought, oh, this will be easy. And I love to give lectures and presentations and workshops. So I thought, well, I mean, I both thought it would be easy, but I also was scared to death. And I still am a little bit more structured than you are because I don't feel comfortable in my ability to completely think um, on my feet like you do. And so um, I yeah, but as I've done it more, I've really enjoyed it, and I constantly find myself thinking of new topics and new speakers that I want to have on. I still have to focus on some of the pacing and the timing of what I say. But yeah, it's been great. And I think the other part of it that's been so fun is it gives me an excuse, I think, maybe it's an excuse is the word, to learn about things in a different way than I wouldn't otherwise. I'm not reading articles to prepare for a talk. I may read a little bit of something, but really I'm preparing to intelligently ask questions of a guest and not make myself sound like a complete idiot. But it's been so much fun. It's been really satisfying to do this. So thank you, Ludwig, for asking me or convincing me to come on and be your co-host.
Oh, I think it's been our gain. No, it's been great. And I think for me, what I've really loved is being able to amplify the different things that I'm interested in. Like, for example, uh, for me, I really wanted to explore topics like, workplace culture and kindness
Yeah.
and empathy. And I think people probably don't look at us anesthesiologists as being the ambassadors for that. But, I think the medical world is pretty harsh and we're busy and everybody needs to get stuff done. And there's a lot of sadness and we all need to just sort of pick it up and keep on going. I think your origin story really illustrates that, your experiences as a surgery intern. So I think the first thing to go when people are busy or stressed out is that empathy and kindness. So, I really wanted to explore that. And I feel like that's been such a boon for me personally.
Well, awesome.
So this has been really fun. I feel like we can only bombard people with our self-talk for half an hour. So let's wrap this up. But, maybe people should give us some feedback and if people like it, maybe we'll come back and do another episode.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can maybe bring in some other people from the CSA and get their origin stories
Oh,
too.
I love it. It'll be a whole series.
Yeah, we'll do a whole
Origin
series. I love
stories.
it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rita, for doing this.
Thank you,
And
Ludwig, for asking and organizing.
all right, people, it's Dr. Rita Agarwal and me, Ludwig Lin, for the CSA Vital Times podcast. Take care.
Bye.